In this video, I want to introduce a promising innovation in Orgonite gifting. This video will explain what it is and demonstrate through several experiments its efficacy. Let us begin with motivation. Given that Orgonite is so effective and so important to humanity and to Earth more generally, it is desirable to make it more powerful, more eco-friendly, and more cost-effective. If we can do all those things, our georestoration efforts will be greatly boosted. In this video, I will show a potential solution that promises all three of these things. It is inspired by some traditional knowledge gained from indigenous peoples who believed that metals in the ground release powerful positive energies. Inspired by this idea is the following recipe for a next generation Orgonite, where we take our metal shavings as usual and take a handful of soil and utilize the soil as if it is the resin. In other words, place the shavings in the soil, alternating a layer of shavings with a layer of soil as if it is just Orgonite with resin, as we usually do. In particular, we dispense of all the toxic plastic and variants that were used in making Orgonite, and of course also with their cost, which is now pretty much the cost of the shavings, which is pennies, and the cost of the soil, which is, pun intended, dirt cheap. As always, when it comes to subtle energies, there is the question, how do you know it is working? For that reason, we perform several experiments, which I will show you now, starting with the now classic freeze test. I have a control, which is plain water. Here it is. It is placed in the freezer for several hours. It is then taken out and examined. Here you can see the result of freezing. You can decide for yourself what you are seeing. My lab assistant, who is not knowledgeable on anything related to Orgonite or energies of the sort, making this person unbiased, described the result as looking clear after being frozen. I also offer here a second control, which is ordinary Orgonite, made by someone else other than myself. In fact, a famous gifter, so that we know this Orgonite works, and I can also vouch for its effectiveness. We take our water, place it on the tower buster, place it in the freezer, give it several hours, and take it out to observe. It clearly looks different from control number 1. Lab Assistant offers a verbal description, which is the water is crystallized, especially at the bottom. Finally, we move on to the experimental, which is the soil orgonite. Here it is. You can see in the bowl you have some shavings. Some of them are out and some of them are inside, mostly inside of the soil. This is placed in a bowl, and then the water is placed on top of this bowl and frozen. Several hours later, it is taken out and we observe the result. Lab Assistant's description is the water froze with something like bubbles at the bottom. Looking back, you can certainly see something that appears like bubbles at the bottom. Since this is a new experiment, I requested to have it performed twice on 2 separate occasions. Another experiment that was conducted involved busting a tower, or in other words, burying soil orgonite in a location where a tower is present. Because we are satisfied with nothing less than overwhelming preponderance of evidence, an additional experiment was conducted. This one was performed as follows. An area was chosen, which, as far as we know, has no other significant gifters of Orgonite, as demonstrated by the environmental crisis present. In particular, the place shows signs, very real signs of desertification, including cactuses, yucca plants, boat ramps being closed because the water level is too low, crop failure, stone-hard soil that has been desiccated, brown and yellow vegetation, and on and on. And of course, signs of door in the skies. For the purpose of this experiment, no gifting was performed by the conductor of the experiment for a 2-week period beforehand, so as to not affect the results. The experiment involved busting 15 tower locations. These were busted on Thursday in the city of Gainesville mostly, and nearby Sadler. Note the day Thursday because this is important in order to understand the weather forecast that is about to be shown. By the end of the experiment, by the end of busting those 15 towers using soil Orgonite, a gray puffy cloud shelf was visible in the horizon. And next, let's see what the forecast was like.
46 bottom, 41. That's it right now in Gainesville. So dry overnight, skies becoming partly cloudy, winds will subside. Tomorrow, sunshine returns. It'll be fairly mild, especially considered how cool it was today. We'll top out around 61. That front, though, comes through late in the afternoon. Winds once again turn to the north-northwest. Could be a couple of quick-hitting showers with the front itself late tomorrow night. Nothing at all compared to what we saw, and very sparse coverage on those rain showers. And then Friday, sunshine, but gusty northwesterly winds will likely keep our temperatures in the 40s. We start out around 36. We'll rise up into the low 60s by the afternoon. 7-day forecast here, windy and chilly on Friday at 48. Fortunately, any rough weather here in North Texas, although we've got a Texas-size cold front that's moving in. Tomorrow will be quite a bit cooler, 45 for the high. That's it. On Friday, the average for this time of the year is 60. We'll see a modest warm-up Saturday to 54. Back up close to normal on Sunday, and then we'll be back in the 60s Monday and Tuesday of next week. Here is a look at the setup right now. This cold front is just beginning to move into northwestern portions of North Texas. The cold air, though, is lagging somewhat behind the front, so we really won't feel it until later tonight and early tomorrow morning. And that is snow falling out of the Panhandle right now. Just south of the Amarillo area, we've got some moderate bursts of snow that will likely coat the ground there. Of course, a very different situation. The elevation much higher out here in the Panhandle, elevation of 3,500 feet to up to 4,000 feet. So they'll get snow with a system like this. That said, I wouldn't rule out the possibility of some wet flakes of snow to the north and east of that dashed line. So from roughly Gainesville to McKinney to Greenville to Emory to the north and east, especially tomorrow afternoon. we could see some wet flakes of snow mixing in. Surface temperatures, though, are going to be above freezing, so any wet flakes that would make it to the surface would likely melt on contact. Rain chances here in the Metroplex only about 20%, but precipitation chances do rise as you head up towards Bonham, Paris, Sulphur Springs. That's where there'll be as high as 40%. We don't necessarily need the rain. We are now in a surplus, not only for February, but for the year. We're about an inch above average. Here's a peek at your weekend forecast. Yes, we will start out with a chill early in the morning with a light freeze here in the Metroplex, maybe some upper 20s to our north and west. But by the afternoon, we should be bouncing back into the low to mid 50s. And then Sunday, partly sunny skies, tack on another 10 degrees or so with a high expected of 63. Hey, check this out. This little guy up in Lindsay in Cook County earlier today catching a few snow flurries there. And I actually saw some pretty impressive flakes that were flying around up in Montague County, east of Bowie in the town of Forestburg. We had one of our Facebook viewers post that. It's all circulating around this area of low pressure in the upper atmosphere.
So what has been learned here? Well, it is difficult to interpret everything very objectively, but the Wednesday forecast said nothing about snow or a cold front. Yet we saw wet snowflakes, and the fact that they are wet indicates that ordinary cold snow fell onto a warm environment and melted. That is why it is wet. What this probably means is that the operation involving busting those 15 towers manifested in a snowing, in particular a form of precipitation, and a cold front, which is cooling, onto a warm environment. So that concludes the main evidence in this presentation. Here are some comments that might be worth thinking about. Mainstream science has shown that negative ions are life-affirming for humans, while positive ions are harmful. These lead to headaches, nausea, and other harmful effects to humans. Mainstream science has also shown that plastic produces positive ions. In other words, plastic produces effects which are harmful to humans. Next comment concerning how to gift soil orgonite. Simply dig a hole, as demonstrated, spill some shavings into it, then cover that with a layer of soil, spill additional shavings, an additional layer of soil, etc., etc. When you are gifting water bodies, you want to think about making sure that the shavings don't get carried by the stream. In that case, more caution may be necessary, but it is absolutely doable to gift bodies of water. One way to do so is simply to dig the hole on the beach and then expecting the water level to rise. Your job is already done. Another comment is that the freezing test suggests that the energy of the soil orgonite differs in quality from that of ordinary orgonite. Other observations, such as clearer skies and greater cooling, also agree with this sentiment. With that, I end the presentation. Hopefully, you will consider experimenting with soil orgonite to derive your own answers to whether it is an innovation in orgonite gifting or merely an alternative form of orgonite.